Our small town was drowning in the rays of the warm sun. I, Alex, was standing in the driveway of our house and changing the tires on my new car. It was my personal ritual activity, which gave me pleasure. The car glittered in the sun, its smooth lines and sparkling rims symbolizing my efforts and dreams. As I immersed myself in my work, I let my thoughts drift into the recent past. Laura and I met 4 years ago when I was just starting my business. It was a party at our mutual friend's house. I immediately noticed Laura. She was standing by the window with a glass of wine, talking to one of her friends. Her snow-white hair, perfect figure, and dazzling smile attracted the eye. I walked up to her resolutely and introduced myself. "Hi, I'm Alex. And you?" "Laura," she replied, smiling. Our conversation started easily. We talked about everything: life, work, dreams, and plans for the future. I quickly realized that I had met a special person. Laura was smart, interesting, and extremely charming. Her eyes shone with genuine interest, and it was captivating. "Do you like your job?" I asked. "Very much. I like helping people, seeing them happy," she replied, sipping her wine. We continued to chat all evening, and I didn't notice how time flew by. As I was leaving the party, I realized that I wanted to see Laura again. Our relationship developed rapidly. With each meeting, I fell more and more in love with Laura. She wasn't just beautiful, she was my muse, inspiring everything I did. We spent a lot of time together, and every day was filled with joy and love. Walking in parks, going to the cinema, dining in restaurants, all this has become part of our journey together. One evening, we were sitting in a cafe enjoying dessert. "You know, Alex," Laura said, looking into my eyes, "I've never felt so happy. You make my life special." "And you're doing mine, Laura," I replied, gently taking her hand. Over time, our relationship became more serious. I asked Laura to move in with me, and she agreed. We started living together, and it was like a fairy tale. There were no quarrels or misunderstandings, only happiness and love. We shared all the moments, supported each other through difficult times, and enjoyed every day together. When I proposed, Laura said yes. We planned a wedding for the summer, and it was the happiest day of my life. Our friends and family gathered to celebrate this event with us. Laura was wearing a white dress like an angel, and I couldn't take my eyes off her. "I'm so happy that we're together," Laura said, standing next to me under the starry sky. "And me, sweetheart," I replied, hugging her. The first years of our marriage were difficult, but Laura always supported me. My car dealership was just starting to generate revenue, and I worked tirelessly to secure our future. My whole life has been filled with hard work and effort, but I knew that I was doing this not only for myself, but also for her. Every morning I woke up early and went to work, knowing that Laura was waiting for me at home. She was always there for me, supported me in difficult moments, and rejoiced at my success. "Alex, you're doing an amazing job," she said, hugging me as I returned home after another difficult day. "Thank you, Laura. Your support means everything to me," I replied, feeling my fatigue go away. Over time, my business began to grow. I opened new car dealerships in other cities, and our income increased. We became rich. We could afford many things that we had only dreamed of before. We bought a house, a new car, traveled the world, and enjoyed life. But despite all this, I began to notice that Laura was increasingly left alone with her thoughts. She could stare out the window for a long time with a cup of tea in her hands and not answer my questions. I attributed it to fatigue and stress, as our lives were very busy. But these small changes in her behavior began to bother me. I decided to ignore it, hoping that things would get better over time. We continued to live our fabulous life, unaware that there were trials ahead of us that would change everything. After our fabulous wedding, Life seemed perfect. Laura and I settled in a cozy house on the outskirts of the city. The morning sun flooded our garden with golden rays, birds chirped merrily, creating an atmosphere of peace. Every morning I woke up feeling happy, knowing that the most amazing woman was next to me. "Good morning, my love," I whispered, kissing Laura gently on the forehead. "Good morning, Alex," she replied, opening her eyes and smiling. "How did you sleep?" "Fine," I said, hugging her. "And you?" "It's like heaven," Laura laughed, clinging tightly to me. Our morning rituals have become special. We cooked breakfast together, discussing plans for the day. Laura often surprised me with her culinary talents. "We have French toast with berries and honey for breakfast today," she announced one morning, serving the dish on the table. "It looks amazing," I exclaimed, tasting the first spoonful. "You're a real culinary genius, Laura." After breakfast, I went to work. My car dealership started to bring in a steady income, and I could afford to work less hard than before. Laura has always supported me, inspired me with new ideas. "I have a thought," she said one evening as we sat on the veranda enjoying the sunset. "Why don't you open another car dealership in the next town? You've always wanted to expand." "You're right, Laura. It's a great idea," I replied, thinking about her suggestion. "I'll start planning tomorrow." Our evenings were filled with comfort and warmth. We often had romantic candlelit dinners and talked about our dreams and plans. Laura has always been full of ideas and inspiration. "Alex, do you think we'll ever be able to move into the lake house?" "What is it?" she asked one day, looking thoughtfully at the stars. "Of course we can," I replied, hugging her. "We can do everything if we are together." So our days and nights passed, in love and harmony. We traveled the world, discovering new places and cultures. Laura loved to take pictures, and our house was full of albums with vivid pictures from our trips. "Look, Alex, it's our vacation in Italy," Laura exclaimed joyfully, pointing to the photo of us standing at the Colosseum. "Yes, I remember how we ate the most delicious gelato in the world," I laughed, remembering those carefree days. However, despite all the happiness, I sometimes noticed something strange about Laura. She could stare out the window for a long time, seemingly lost in her own thoughts. Her smile became less sincere, and sometimes a shadow of sadness appeared in her eyes. "Laura, is everything okay?" I asked one evening when we were sitting on the couch watching a movie. "Yes, I'm fine," she replied, but her voice sounded uncertain. "I'm just a little tired." I decided not to insist, writing it off as stress and fatigue from our busy lives. But deep down, something began to bother me. I tried not to attach importance to this, hoping that things would get better over time. One day, Laura returned home with the news. "Alex, I met a wonderful man at work," she said as she entered the house. "His name is David. He works for a marketing agency and is such an interesting conversationalist. I invited him to dinner at our place this weekend. Do you mind?" "Of course I don't mind," I replied with a smile. "It will be interesting to meet him." On a weekend evening, the doorbell rang, and David came into our house, tall, athletic, with confidence in his eyes and a friendly smile. "I'm David," he said, holding out his hand. "Nice to meet you, I'm Alex," I replied, shaking his hand. The evening passed in a pleasant atmosphere. David talked about his work, the projects he is working on, and how he enjoys helping people succeed. "David, how did you meet Laura?" I asked as we sat at the table. "Oh, it's a funny story," David began, laughing. "We bumped into each other in a cafe and started talking. It turned out that we had a lot in common, and we quickly became friends." "Really, Laura?" I turned to my wife, who was sitting next to me. "Yes, it was very unexpected, but pleasant," she confirmed, smiling. Laura and David talked and laughed merrily all evening, and I was glad that my wife had such a good friend. After dinner, we walked David to the door. "Thanks for a wonderful evening," he said as he left. "I hope we'll do it again soon." "Of course, David. It was nice to meet you," I replied. When the door closed behind David, Laura turned to me. "Thanks, Alex. It was important to me that you get to know him." "He's a really interesting man," I agreed. "I'm glad you have such a friend." That's how our first years of marriage passed, filled with love, happiness, and new acquaintances. We enjoyed life, made plans for the future, and believed that only happy days were ahead of us. But life sometimes presents unexpected twists. A few months have passed since I met David, and he has become a frequent guest in our house. Laura spent more and more time with him, and I was glad that she had such a good friend. However, deep down, something was beginning to bother me, although I tried not to attach importance to it. "Alex, I'm meeting David again today," Laura said one morning, getting ready for work. We decided to have lunch together and discuss a couple of interesting projects. "That sounds great," I replied, trying to hide my uncertainty. "You talk so enthusiastically about your meetings with him." "Yes, he is a really interesting person," Laura smiled, kissing me goodbye. "See you tonight." I couldn't get my mind off Laura and David all day. Why do they spend so much time together? Of course, Laura always had a lot of friends, and I wasn't jealous. But lately these meetings have become too frequent. When I returned home in the evening, I found Laura in a good mood. "How was your day?" I asked, taking off my jacket. "Wonderful," she replied, pouring herself a glass of wine. "David and I discussed some interesting ideas for his new project. He's so talented and smart." "I'm glad for you," I said, trying not to show my concern. "Alex, you two realize that David is just a friend, right?" Laura suddenly asked, looking into my eyes. "Of course, Laura. I trust you," I replied, although I was seething with doubts inside. A few more weeks passed, and Laura's meetings with David became even more frequent. They visited exhibitions together, went to cafes, and just walked around the city. I tried not to pay attention to it, but one day I noticed something strange. Laura came home late at night and I noticed sparkles on her body. "What is it?" I asked, pointing to the sequins on her neck. "Oh, it's just an accident," Laura laughed. "David and I were playing with jewelry, and here's the result." I tried to believe her, but something inside me broke. For the first time, I felt that something had changed between us. One day, when I got home earlier than usual, I heard Laura and David laughing from the living room. They were sitting on the couch, too close to each other. My heart skipped a beat. "Hi, Alex," Laura said cheerfully when she saw me. David and I discussed his new project. "Hi," I replied, trying to control myself. "You seem to be having fun." "Yes, we were just remembering funny things from the past," David said, smiling. I tried not to show my emotions, but anxiety was growing inside me. Why are they so close? Why is Laura spending more and more time with him and not with me? The next day, I decided to talk to Laura frankly. "Laura, I need to talk to you," I said when we were alone in the evening. "What's wrong, Alex?" "What is it?" she asked, sitting down next to me. "It seems to me that you spend too much time with David. I'm starting to worry," I admitted. "Alex, he's just a friend," Laura replied softly, taking my hand. "You have to trust me." "I do, but it's getting too frequent. I feel like I'm losing you," I said, looking into her eyes. Laura looked at me sadly and hugged me. "I'm sorry if I'm making you worry. I don't want you to feel that way," she said. "I promise I'll spend more time with you." I wanted to believe her, but my anxiety wouldn't let me go. In the following days, I tried to distract myself from my thoughts by immersing myself in work. But every time Laura talked about meeting David, I felt something shrink inside me. One evening, when Laura returned home later than usual, I couldn't stand it. Laura, I can't take this anymore, I said, trying to contain my emotions. What's going on between you and David? She looked at me, and I saw confusion in her eyes. Alex is nothing between us. He's just a friend, she replied. Then why do you spend so much time together? Why do I feel like I'm losing you? I continued, unable to restrain myself. Laura came up to me and hugged me. Alex, I'm sorry. I didn't want you to feel that way. I promise that I will spend more time with you, she said, and I felt that she was sincerely remorseful. I wanted to believe her, but my anxiety wouldn't let me go. In the following days, I tried to distract myself from my thoughts by immersing myself in work. But every time Laura talked about meeting David, I felt something shrink inside me. My relationship with Laura began to change. We talked less and less, and I felt that the gap between us was growing. I didn't know what to do, so I decided to ask my best friend John for advice. John, I need your help, I said when we met at the cafe. Of course, Alex. What happened? What is it? He asked, listening intently. I do not know what to do. Laura spends too much time with David, and I feel like I'm losing her, I confessed. Have you tried to talk to her about it? John asked. Yes, but she says he's just a friend. But I can't get rid of the feeling that there's something more between them, I said, lowering my head. Alex, I understand your doubts. But if Laura says he's just a friend, you have to trust her. Try to spend more time with her, show her how much you love her, John advised. I decided to follow his advice and try to restore our relationship with Laura. In the following days, I paid more attention to her, arranged romantic dinners, invited her for walks. Laura seemed happy, and I began to hope that everything would get better. But one day, when I got home earlier than usual, I found Laura and David at our house. They were sitting on the couch, too close to each other, and there was something in their eyes that I couldn't understand. Alex, Laura said, noticing me. David and I were just chatting. Hi, I replied, trying not to show my concern. I decided not to make a scene, but everything was boiling inside me. What's going on between them? Why are they together so often? In the following days, I tried not to think about it, but the anxiety wouldn't let me go. Laura continued to date David, and I felt that something had changed. Our relationship was getting more and more strained, and I didn't know how to handle the situation. So several weeks passed, full of doubts and worries. I didn't know what to do, and I felt like I was losing Laura. But there are new challenges ahead of us, and I hoped that I could cope with them and keep our love. It's been a few months since I started noticing changes in my relationship with Laura. The anxiety that settled in my soul became my constant companion. I tried to believe Laura when she said that David was just a friend, but something inside me was bothering me. And so one evening, I decided to act. Laura, are you seeing David again today? I asked, watching her get ready. Yes, he has a new project, and I promised to help, she replied, smiling slightly. Don't worry, I won't be late. Okay, I nodded, trying to hide my anxiety. Be careful. When Laura left, I decided to check her words. I wasn't proud of it, but I needed to find out the truth. I got in the car and followed her. Laura arrived at David's house, and I decided to wait in the car, watching their windows. The hours dragged on endlessly, and I began to doubt my decision. Then the lights came on in the windows, and I saw Laura and David. They were sitting too close to each other, and something about their behavior seemed wrong to me. My heart sank. Suddenly, Laura got up and went to the window. I hid behind the seat, hoping she wouldn't notice me. When she walked away, I realized that it was time to act. I got out of the car and walked up to the house. His heart was beating so loudly that it seemed he could be heard from hundreds of meters away. I opened the door and went inside. Laura and David were sitting on the couch, their faces expressing a mixture of surprise and fear. "Alex, what are you doing here?" Laura asked, standing up and taking a step towards me. "I've come to find out the truth," I said, trying to contain my anger. "What's going on here?" "Alex, it's not what you think," Laura began, but I interrupted her. "Not what I think it is," I repeated, feeling the rage building inside me. "Then tell me what it means." David stood up and tried to say something, but I stepped forward and grabbed him by the collar. "Did you think I wouldn't notice anything?" I hissed, looking him straight in the eye. "Did you think you could trick me?" "Alex, calm down," Laura intervened, trying to pull me away. "I can explain everything." "Explain what?" "That you betrayed me," I shouted, releasing David and turning to Laura. "That you've been lying to me all this time." Laura burst into tears, trying to find the words, but I wasn't listening anymore. All I felt was pain and betrayal. "How long has this been going on?" I asked, trying to hold on. "A few months," Laura whispered, avoiding my gaze. "A few months," I repeated, feeling anger wash over me. "And you've been pretending all this time." "Alex, I didn't mean for this to happen," she began, but I interrupted her again. "Didn't you want to?" I said, laughing out of desperation. "You knew what you were doing, and you kept going anyway." David, who had been standing on the sidelines all this time, finally spoke. "Alex, it's my fault too," he said. "It started by accident, and I didn't want it to go that far." "By accident," I repeated, feeling a wave of rage wash over me. "You lied to both of us, pretending to be gay to get closer to Laura." I went up to David and pushed him in the face. He staggered and fell. Laura screamed and rushed to him. "Alex, stop," she screamed, but I couldn't control myself anymore. I picked David up and pushed him again. He tried to defend himself, but he was too weak. Laura tried to stop me, but I was too strong at that moment. "Do you think you could steal my wife and get away with it?" I shouted. "You ruined our lives." Finally, I stopped, realizing that I didn't want to stoop to violence anymore. I let go of David and he fell to the floor, breathing heavily. "We're done," I said, looking at Laura, who was standing in tears. "I can't live with this betrayal anymore." I turned and left the house, slamming the door. Outside, I felt tears rolling down my cheeks. The life I knew collapsed in an instant. In the days that followed, I filed for divorce and refused all attempts by Laura to explain or apologize. Our whole life together now seemed like a lie to me. I couldn't believe that the woman I loved with all my heart could betray me like that. I found out that David quit because of the scandal that broke out after our confrontation. It gave me some satisfaction to know that he too had been punished for his actions. However, this was not enough to fill the void left by the betrayal. I decided that I could no longer live in this house filled with memories. I moved into a small apartment closer to work and started a new life. My job at the car dealership was my salvation. I put all my energy and passion into the business to forget about the pain. "Alex, how are you coping?" my friend John asked when he came to see me one evening. I replied, shrugging my shoulders. "Work helps you forget. If you need help or just to talk, I'm always there," John said, putting his hand on my shoulder. "Thank you, John. I appreciate it," I replied, feeling grateful for his support. A few months passed, and I began to recover. I realized that I couldn't let Laura and David's betrayal ruin my life. I began to communicate more with friends, found solace in their company. Every morning, I got up with a new determination. I was no longer that naive person who believed in fairy tales. Life had taught me a harsh lesson, and I was ready to accept it and move on. It's been a few months since I filed for divorce. Life was gradually returning to normal, but the wound left by Laura and David's betrayal had not yet healed. I concentrated on my work, but I couldn't stop thinking about them. One day, I decided that I simply had to return justice. "John, need your help," I said to my best friend when we met at the cafe. "I want David to understand that everything has to be paid for." "Alex, I'm with you," John replied, nodding. "What are you up to?" "David has to pay for what he did. I want his life to become as unbearable as mine," I said, clenching my fists. John looked at me with understanding. "I have a couple of ideas," he said thoughtfully. "We can use his weaknesses against him." John and I discussed our plan for a long time, and I felt a determination growing inside me. David needs to feel what it means to be loyal. The first step was to find out where he was working now. Thanks to my contacts, I found out that he got a job at a new marketing agency. We decided that we would start with his professional reputation. "We have friends at this agency," John said. "We can spread rumors about his dishonest actions. Let his colleagues begin to doubt his honesty." "Great," I nodded. "Let him feel what it's like to lose trust." We started to act. I contacted our mutual acquaintances and carefully hinted that David was behaving strangely. Rumors began to spread, and soon his colleagues began to treat him with suspicion. "Alex, did you hear that?" one of our acquaintances asked me. "They say that David allegedly framed one of the clients." "Really?" I replied, pretending to be surprised. "It's not like him." But inside I felt satisfied. The plan began to work. David was increasingly faced with distrust and suspicion. His career, which had seemed so successful, began to crumble. The next step was to undermine his personal life. We found out that David had started dating a new girl, and we decided to use this to our advantage. "We need to find a way to destroy their relationship," I told John. "Let him feel what it means to be loyal." "I have an idea," John replied, smiling. "We can arrange for her to find out about his past." We gathered all possible evidence of his betrayal and sent an anonymous letter to his new girlfriend. The letter contained photos and a detailed description of how he deceived Laura and me. A few days later, I heard that she had dumped him. "Alex, your plan is working," John said when he met me. "David lost his job and his girlfriend. He's broken." "This is just the beginning," I replied, feeling the anger recede, giving way to cold satisfaction. But that wasn't all. I wanted him to feel all the pain I went through. We found out that David was trying to get a job at a new agency and decided to stop him. "We need to make sure he doesn't get hired," I told John. "We have to destroy all his chances of success." We started acting again. After contacting the agency's management, we told them about his past, about his dishonesty and betrayal. The result was not long in coming. "David, unfortunately, we can't hire you," the manager told him at the interview. "We have information that calls into question your honesty." David came out of the office, his face full of despair. He understood that his reputation was ruined, and he would no longer be able to find work in his field. "Alex, I think this is the end," John said when we found out about the results. "David is broken." I felt the anger that I had been carrying for so long begin to subside. My retribution was complete. I knew that I had done the right thing and that justice had been done. But I had a new life ahead of me. I realized that I couldn't keep living in the past. I needed to move forward, leaving the pain and betrayal behind. I decided that I would start all over again, with a clean slate. A few months passed, and I began to build a new life. Working at a car dealership has started to bring me joy again. I found new hobbies, started talking to new people, and gradually regained faith in life. "Alex, how are you coping?" John asked when we met at the cafe. "Better than ever," I replied, smiling. I realized that life goes on, and I am ready for new challenges. We raised a toast to a new life, and I felt the weight begin to disappear from my shoulders. Knew that new challenges were ahead of me, but I was ready for them. Justice had been served, and I was ready to move forward, leaving the past behind. So we have come to the end of this story. Please write your opinion in the comments. We will be interested to know it. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss new, even more exciting stories. We wish you good luck.